Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Evening Tea
with Mom
and Son, where we pick specific topics to talk about that either interest us, scare us, or confuse us and explore its different perspectives.
And we also enjoyed some tea along the way.
All right, everyone. Welcome. This is our first episode. Woo! I'm so excited.
Yeah, Arjun, I'm excited too.
Oh my gosh. You don't have as much enthusiasm as me.
Yes, I am excited.
I know you're faking it, but we'll work on that.
Okay.
So, Mom, what are we going to talk about today? I know we kept it secret.
It's a very interesting topic that we're going to talk about time.
Time
in different perspectives
Ooh.
of, like how do you view time scientifically? How do people view
Yeah,
time
so
culturally?
all the perspectives.
All the perspectives.
Yeah.
And what are we drinking today?
Oh, this is going to be interesting. So today we are drinking Trader Joe's, probably shouldn't be saying that. Yeah, and he shouldn't be saying that. Hey guys, this is AJ, Arjun's alter editing ego, basically the guy that edits stuff afterwards. Trader Joe's is not sponsoring this podcast. It happens to be where we got the tea, but they do not sponsor this podcast. I repeat, do not sponsor this podcast. Anyway, back to the episode. But we're drinking basically white pomegranate tea. So the reason we're drinking white pomegranate tea is time it's gonna kind of relate to our topic of time through the story of Persephone. So Persephone she's a Greek goddess, and she's supposed to be the daughter of Zeus and Demeter, who are also sisters. Don't ask, or also siblings. Don't ask how that happened. But basically Persephone was abducted by Hades, and basically when she was down there, she ate 1/3 of a pomegranate, and that meant that she had to stay 1/3 of her year down in the underworld, which was considered winter, and the other 2/3 up of her year in the mortal world, which was considered spring, summer, and fall. So it is super interesting that the Greeks kind of emphasized time through pomegranates and just eating something in the underworld. You had to stay there, but the fact that she ate 1/3 of a pomegranate kind of gave her that switching ability, which is the weird that the Greeks kind of related time with pomegranates. So that's why we're drinking pomegranate tea. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Moving on to the definition of time, because I think we need to place that, right, Mom?
Yes, we have to place it.
Yeah, we have to find out really what that is. And I'm looking it up here. It says the definition of time is the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, and future regarded as a whole. So that is a huge definition. If you guys didn't get that, it's a lot of words and a whole lot of mumbo jumbo, but
basically time is passing.
Yeah, well, basically what they're saying is it's just a movement of our existence. So before we talk about time, we should talk about what time actually is. And to do that, I guess, what perspective do you think we should start with? Because
we should definitely start with the scientific perspective, because I think time is something that's defined by science, right?
So we
should start with the scientific perspective.
Yeah, so in science it's very weird how we categorize time, because we look at time so much more as just something that just keeps on going. And in SI units, or scientific or significant instrument units, I think that's it. or scientific units that we use. We measure time in seconds, right? And there are other measures of time. There's hours, there's minutes, there's days, there's years, there's centuries, right? We know we measure time in varying different scales, but when it comes to like time, we always see time as moving forward, and it has a relationship when we think about time with objects and space, and that's why there's this whole concept of space-time. And when physicists view time, they view it as, I guess, a fourth dimension, which is very, very interesting. So, Mom, what do you think like the fourth dimension actually entails? Because it's very weird how we think about it.
Yeah. So there's, imagine if there's a two-dimensional world. Imagine if there was a world where you could only see things in 2 dimension. Imagine if, right now we are able to see things in 3 dimension, but we can't imagine a world where you can see everything in 2 dimension. Same way, we cannot imagine a world where you can see everything in 4 dimensions. But you would be able to see across time. You would be able to see the same event or the same event transposing through time, and you would be able to go back into any point of that time and change it or alter it. So
yeah, and I think I remember hearing about this from Carl Sagan. He is an astrophysicist and an astrobiologist, basically someone who believes in aliens. And aliens do exist. I'm an astrobiologist too. I believe that aliens exist. I believe that we can create a new field. It's just that we haven't found them yet. We will find them. There's something called, there's this equation. I don't know what it's called, but it's that equation that we use to find life. The equation that my past self is describing is known as the Drake equation. Hey guys, it's AJ, Arjun's editing alter ego. I think that's it. Anyway, back to the podcast. Obviously. When you're talking about the fourth dimension, I think what you're really trying to say is, I think Carl Sagan explained this pretty, like what you said really, a little bit more simplistically, basically saying, if you're a 2D object, when you see something in 3D, you will only see it as an imprint of itself. The same way that when we see time, we only see time as an imprint of itself, and we see it changing, right? Obviously, we could be, absolutely wrong, but a fourth dimensional being would be someone, like the best example I can give you is from that scene in Doctor Strange, right? Where he turns the dial and he sees the apple through all the dimensions of time, right? There's that scene where he sees it kind of crunch up and then he sees it back to full form. I think that's the way that a fourth dimensional being would see, I guess, time. It would be something that could be controlled or at least be able to see all of that thing.
All of the dimensions.
All of the thing that object could have gone through or would have gone through. So it would have been something like the apple.
From the start to the end.
Yeah, so you'd see the apple as a part of the tree, then you'd see it as an apple, and you'd see it as a core after it's being eaten, all at the same time. Or as it's dried up, all at the same time.
Superb. Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So do you think there are people existing who would be able to see time in fourth dimension? Do you think God is one of those?
Well, if there was a God like that, because we do see instances in religion where God is supposed to be all-knowing and all-seeing, he would be someone that would have been able to see in the fourth dimension. That's something that is thought-provoking and theoretical. So, I guess the reason that humans believe that is because of the way that we see God as someone who sees everything, knows everything, right?
Yeah.
And of course, he could be wrong. He just sees things in fourth dimension, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting ideology to think about it like that. So your scientific perspective of time is, that, but I think we should also talk about what happens when there's a fourth dimension. We did talk about that. We didn't talk about black holes and what happens.
Oh, black holes is a whole different story. Going inside a black hole is just completely crazy, and like we still don't know what happens inside there, and that's a whole different topic. And of course, yeah, but like black holes, I mean, black holes is just like the relationship between, it just embodies the relationship between matter and time, right? It just breaks that rule, because we don't know if, what things do to time when you get near a black hole. We don't know what happens to light when we get near a black hole, because a black hole is so massive that it draws in light.
Got it. So what's time-space continuum? I hear people talking about that so often.
Okay, so yeah, the time-space continuum is one of those concepts that's like fundamental to astrophysics, right? Or at least astronomy, to that matter. Let's say you have a blanket, right? And that blanket is kind of space, right? If you drop like a tennis ball on that blanket, let's represent that as a planet. The tennis ball will kind of bend into that blanket as you stretch it out, right? Because the space-time continuum is just a really stretched out blanket. And if we place that on there, it's just going to bend to form that arch that holds that planet in. What a black hole does, which is very interesting, right? In the space-time continuum, it rips through that space-time continuum and causes a hole, which is why it's called a black hole, right? And we still don't know what happens inside a black hole.
So does time change when a planet hits the space-time continuum?
Well, the way we perceive time changes, because I know what you're getting at. We were getting at the rocket ship experiment, right? So time changes when we move, or for us, our biological clock changes when we go from different places to the other. And this is the basis of Einstein theory.
That's when you go into the space. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that is the basis.
When you leave the Earth and go into the space.
Yeah, or there are things like that. But that is the basis of Einstein's theory of special relativity, which is basically what time is based off of. We don't notice that time goes by when things don't change, right? Let's say you are just staying in a place where there's nothing around you, it's just darkness, right? The only reason you know that time is going by is if you as a person do something, right? Because then you don't know that time is going by. You don't know how much time is going by, right? So there's that ideology that time can only be measured off of the change of events, which is why it's one of the fourth dimensions.
Yes.
Right? And let's explain the rocket experiment really quickly, because this one's a fun one. So let's say you're twin. You're a twin, right? You have a twin. And your twin stays here on Earth while you go into space. And you are going as close to the speed of light as possible. So the speed of light is basically the physical speed limit in the world. You cannot go faster than that, ever. Even if you try, you cannot go. And we haven't even gotten to the speed of light. But let's say we get as close to the speed of light as possible. That'll take about 4 years to the nearest star and then 4 years back. So around 8 years, right? You will have aged around 8 years because you're going at the speed of light. But in Earth years, you will have gone 35 years. Because the Earth moves slower than the speed of light, obviously, right? So when the Earth moves that slow, we need to understand that the time that it'll take for that person to get older is the 35 years, while you have only aged 8. So let's say you were 21 when you left. You would be 29 when you came back, but your twin would almost be 56,
wow.
Right? If I'm doing the math right.
Wow.
So, nice experiment, kids. If you have a twin, you should totally try that. If you have a ton of money and a twin, you should totally try that.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's great to see yourself age, how you look.
But twins, please try that. That'd be really hilarious. Send us a pic if you tried it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, so probably the twin will keep thinking that, oh wow, I'm still young.
Yeah.
The twin that lands back
Yeah,
from
that'd be
the
crazy.
space.
But he'd also have really bad bone density because he's been in the space for like 8 years.
Oh,
That's a
gosh.
long time. So I think we've kind of hit the scientific stuff. We've like maxed out on that.
I didn't really. I think we didn't talk about deja vu. We didn't talk
Well,
about
that's more like an ethical perspective, right?
ethical perspective.
I think
Yeah.
that's just our sensation of time.
Yeah. So what is the second? What is the second lens that you want to view?
Well, let's
time
start
in?
with cultural then. So I think you did all the research for that.
Yeah, exciting. Culturally, time is passing. Like, when you delay a decision or when you don't make a decision that has to be made or take an action that has to be performed, the time passes. And then you can never get back that time. Even though if you make a decision after the passing of the specific time, you might not be able to achieve the goal that you wanted to achieve.
Oh,
because
yeah.
the decision was delayed.
Yeah, we've all experienced that before. It's where when you don't make a critical decision at a certain time, as time goes by, that decision becomes less and less important, right?
And less effective.
And less effective, right?
Yeah. More than important, less and less effective. It might still be an important decision, but the effectiveness of the decision might, be compromised.
Okay, so do you think there's a time where you know that it's a 100% effectiveness of that decision goes in? Because most of the time when we do stuff, when we make a decision, we don't know if 100% of that decision is going to go into the output of the.
That's why. That's why you got to make informed decisions.
Yeah, but how do you know? Like, how can you make a 100% effective decision? Is that possible?
Yes, very well possible.
Name an example, because I don't think that's actually possible.
When you get up in the morning, you set a goal of today. This is what I'm going to do, and you make the decision of finishing stuff in the timeline that you plan, and that kind of results in you finishing things in time, having a great day. So every day starts with decision making. Every day you make decisions from the point you get up, from the time you get up to the time you go to bed. There is a bunch of decisions that you make in order to make your day better.
But how do you know that each and every single one of those decisions you make is 100% effective?
At least most of them are 100% effective if you achieve your goal of closing the day in right time, and if you're able to,
And how do you measure that effectiveness, right? Because effective might be different for different people, right? And that's one of the things that we were going to talk about, where we both have different views of time. Culturally, where
Yes.
you view effectiveness differently than I do. So I view effectiveness as the time that I have should be spent doing the things I want to, especially because I'm young and I'm just entering this adult world, right? Everything that I do is completely based off of just that effectiveness of time.
I think, yes, you should do the things that you want to do, but in order to do the things that you want to do, you should have done the things that you have to do. So if you are making decisions to complete the things that you have to do, then you get the ability to spend time on the things that you want to do and make decisions that are supporting this decision of what you have to do and what you want to do.
Well, I want to minimize the things that I have to do so that I can increase of the things that I want to do, right? Because then the time that you spend the stuff you have to do is wasted.
So what if you decide, okay, today you decide that you want to go out in the weekend, okay, and you decide to go to a lake, drive to a lake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, imagine you are supposed to leave at 5 a.m. in the morning and you want to get ready the previous night. If you're someone who's smart enough, you would go check your car's tank and see if you have enough gas to go and come back.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go pump gas if you need to the previous night if you have to leave 5 a.m. in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're someone who's not a planner and who's not a decision maker as to, I want to go to this, lake in the morning, and then suddenly you get up at 5 a.m. and you decide you have to go, it gets harder to go pump gas at that time and then leave. So the decision making, if you had made the decision earlier, you would have the time to prepare for having the plan done successfully, versus if you had, it's not, you're going to get gas, that's not a problem, but you would get delayed another 30 minutes.
I mean, that's not going to ruin your day at the lake.
But for someone who plans a schedule and wants to stay on the schedule.
See, exactly. This is why we differ. Yeah, guys, listen to this. We differ on things. We argue all the time. You see, that I think that's the thing. Like, that's not going to change your enjoyment when you go to the lake. You're still going to have your stuff put in the back, you're just going to take outside and then put it in the trunk, and then you're going to go. But you're still going to have fun at the lake. The time that you spend at the lake is not going to change. You might be delayed by like 30 minutes, but the time that you spent at that lake is going to be fully appreciated.
Yes, definitely fully appreciated. But I think I come from a perspective of Western perspective where, time is considered linear, and once time is passed, you cannot get it back.
And sometimes this is something that you have to explain because...
Yeah, so culturally, the Eastern and Western culture view time differently. So the Eastern culture view time as cyclical, where time is going to be happening back and forth again and again. Time is cyclical. It's not scarce. It's a commodity that is available, and it can. So like a cycle, it's day, night. Like a cycle, it's first the week, beginning of the week, the end of the week, beginning of the month, the end of the month. So they view time as something that is going in circles and is available all the time. And this is what reflects to show in their work ethic. So if there is a meeting and people are talking to figure out answers to a certain questions, in an Eastern culture, they would wait to figure out the solution for the problem, even if they are going overboard of the meeting time, and it's going to take 15-20 more minutes to come to the conclusions, versus in a Western culture, time is a very valuable thing. So they would cut short the meeting, and if they had not arrived at a decision, stop at the point where they have to stop the meeting and then continue the next week or continue in the next meeting, and not continue in the same meeting, because their ideology of time is money. Every minute that you waste is money wasted.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that. So that's the way that we see time, and we can also see that in the calendars of each culture, because when we look at Eastern cultures, we see a circle calendar. Like we see that in the Chinese calendar, we see that in the Indian calendar, we see that in the Japanese calendar, where the months itself are put in a circle, and are they divided equally? Because I don't know. Right?
They are.
I guess they are. Like in Roman culture, we see it in squares and we see it in lines, right? Because right now we're following the Roman calendar, and we see that the Roman calendar is super different from the Chinese calendar, because the Chinese New Year, the Indian New Year is completely different, and it's based off of the moon, while the Roman calendar is based off of the sun. So we see this difference in the way that those cultures view time. And we also see that echoing today, as you said, in the meetings, right? Obviously. So what does that have to say about time? Even though we view time differently, do you think that time is culturally binding? Do you think it binds the way that we see different things?
So you're asking if time can bind people together culturally?
Yeah. Do you think that there are ways that time, creates some sort of bond between cultures?
I don't think so. I think it's viewed way differently between Eastern and Western culture, and that's why it's quite hard for someone from Western culture to be able to understand why there are delays in Eastern culture when you're setting up a meeting time and people are not there on time.
Yeah.
It is viewed as very, very unprofessional when it comes to Western culture. In Eastern culture, it's quite common.
Yeah, running on IST,
Yes.
Indian Standard Time. Yeah, so we make this joke all the time where if someone runs late to like a party or like a meeting, we say that they run on Indian Standard Time because Indian time is where night and day are kind of like switched apart for us, and like when
And a
it's
3 hours
night
delay
here-
is considered cool.
so 3 hours delay is fashionably late, and anything more is okay. Anything less, you are a weirdo type deal. But yeah.
Coming to thinking of time religiously, how do you, in religious perspective, according to Hinduism, time is again cyclical, and it's represented by a Kala chakra, which is like a wheel,
A
of
circle.
the time, and it keeps rotating.
And we see this in Buddhism as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a cycle. So there is creation, then there is preservation, and then there is destruction. Creation is done by Lord Vishnu, preservation is done by Lord Vishnu. And
Wrong. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, right?
No, preservation is still done by Vishnu.
Preservation is done by Vishnu. Creation is done
by
by Lord
Brahma.
Brahma.
Destruction is done by Lord Shiva.
And we see that in Hindu mythology. In Buddhism, we see it in the Eightfold Path, where it's the circle, the wheel, and the moving, and suffering is always happening, right? And we see this in Chinese culture through the Chinese calendar, where if you're born in this year, you're considered the year of the panda. I think I'm year of the horse.
Oh wow!
Right? I think 2001 is year of the horse.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So I don't know. We have to go check our Panda Express menus for that. So one of the things that we didn't touch upon was how we use time to measure, I guess, the happiness and fear and stuff like that. Because sometimes when I look at my past actions, or when I dread my future actions that I'm going to make, I either have some sort of happiness or fear when I look at my past actions, or mostly fear when I look at my future actions. I'm super nervous about what I'm going to do in the future. Basically, that's what keeps me up at night.
So I think uncertainty is what creates the fear, and happiness about the past is probably because all the good times that you had. But you got to realize one thing, that the past is gone. You cannot change that. But the present is what, the future is not in your hand. The present is what you have in your hand right now. So now is the time that you can change or do something that can make you a better person in order to handle the uncertainty of the future. But now is what you've got. Present is what you've got. That's what Buddhism says.
Okay, so does that...
You do not know, the past cannot be changed. You do not know the future. What you know is what you have right now. With the knowledge you have right now, and with the resources you have right now, and the decisions that you can make right now, and the informed decisions that you make right now is going to make a future.
Okay, so but does everything have to be informed? Because that's do we have to have informed decisions on everything? Like, do we have to have an informed decision on what cereal I'm gonna have in the morning, or what book I'm gonna read? Well, okay, maybe not what book I'm gonna read. I'm probably gonna choose that informedly, but if I'm gonna drink coffee in the morning or stuff like that, or like whether what I'm saying right now makes sense. Like, do I have to have an informed decision on that?
Yes, you do have to have an informed decision on most of the things that you do.
Brushing my teeth in the morning.
With what pace you want to brush your teeth in the morning, or do you want to
really, or do I have to brush my? Well, okay, you will probably have to, guys. Brush your teeth, children. Brush your teeth.
So yes, you have to make informed decisions about most of the things that you do in your life. Mm-hmm. You want to make informed decisions to stay healthy and happy and contented, right?
Okay.
Contentment is something that comes when you make an informed decision and it becomes a success. Right?
Okay.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you do want to make an informed decision. Advice for all the youngsters out there.
Yeah.
Don't make stupid decisions.
All right. So I think that settles that. So I mean, what I'm more worried about is, like, I guess you asked this mistake, or you asked this question, sorry. Mistake is in the question, but basically you said if you made a mistake in the past, would your future self have done it differently, is what you asked.
Yes.
Because
so the time has passed when you had to make that decision, you were not this present self. You were younger and less experienced. It was way before in time. And then now, if you have to make the same decision, would you make it differently? Would it change the way you would make the decision?
I don't think so. Like, I guess maybe because what I'm dreading more likely is I made this past mistake. What if I make it again, but it's much worse? Right?
If you make the same decision again?
Or the same mistake again?
You would not, right? You learn by your mistakes, right? So once you make a decision and it doesn't work well, you learn by that mistake. It's a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
You learn by that and you say, oh, this is where I went wrong. That is why if you see when a project fails or when a project is not a success, the first thing that you write down is the learnings that you gain from the project. What I shouldn't have done. What caused this not to happen. Not what caused this not to work.
Okay.
So you learn from your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I learn from my mistakes. Every time I make a mistake, oh, this is what I should have been careful about. This is what I missed. Next time around, when I face the same situation, I would be an informed decision maker.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I think the one thing that we really haven't touched on and we really wanted to talk about is, I guess,
Deja vu.
Deja vu, which is the weird part of time, right? It's that weird sensation that we get when we notice something, hey, this has already happened before. And have you experienced deja vu, Mom?
Yeah, quite a bit. I remember several times I will be in awe that, oh, why am I doing this again? I thought I just did this sometime earlier, and it's like repeating. And why am I? Is the same scene repeating again? Am I imagining this? Will be the weird idea that strikes you. So why is that? Why is that you? What is deja vu, and why is that you feel that?
Okay, so I looked this up on TED. Basically, there's a video about it. If you guys want to go watch it, go ahead. But déjà vu in French means already seen. It is just a sensation that we feel when either of these three processes happen in our brain. And these are just theories because we still don't know what really happens in déjà vu, right? It's just something that we feel is weird. And of course, our brain is less understood than the cosmos out there. We know more about what's out there than what's in here, which is crazy, right? So there are three things that tend to happen when you're doing deja vu. One is called dual processing. When you process something, you process like a situation. You process it usually in line, like video. So you'd see this and there'd be multiple brain scans of what you're seeing. Sometimes that brain scan goes a little bit back, right? One of the brain scans has a little delay, right? And then when you see it again, you see it as deja vu.
Wow.
Okay, that's one process. The second process is the hologram theory. That is when you see something and it reminds you of a distant memory that happened before. So for example, you're looking at a rug, right? And that rug is very similar to your grandmother's rug in her house, right? And a distant memory is just recalled from the brain for some weird reason. And I think it's just a neuron firing, right? And you say, hey, that I've already seen that before. That's a deja vu. Then the third one is divided attention. It's when you focus on something really, really important. Then you look at your outside view of that, or you look at the surroundings. You look at something and you concentrate on something, and then you don't notice that you're concentrating on something, and then you look outside and you're like, hey, I'm at this same place. I remember this place. That's probably because you were there a few seconds ago. You were just focusing on something else. So those are the three ways that deja vu can happen.
Wow.
Right?
Wow, that's interesting, right? How you feel something is repeating in a different time. than when it happened before.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's how our brain is like so tricky.
Yeah. So, I think to kind of finish off this episode, I think like we need to talk about how should we use our time now? Because now that we understand time in such a different way, we understand it in all four perspectives, and we see time totally different. How should we use time so that, like you said, we are making informed decisions, right?
By making informed decisions and by, having a schedule.
Yeah, but how should we use our time making those decisions? So should we spend all of our time making those decisions, or should we spend all of our time doing stuff? Or how should we do that? 50-50, 75-25, 25-75?
Decision making is, depends upon what you're making a decision on. It can be as important as whom you want to be dating to what you want to have for lunch. So you don't want to spend like 2 hours deciding what you want to have for lunch, but definitely, obviously, you want to spend an hour.
More than an hour. More than an hour, Mom.
Deciding whom you want to date, right? Yeah.
Definitely more than an hour.
It depends upon the criticality of the decision as to how much time you would need to make that decision.
Definitely, we need definitely more than an hour, guys. At least spend a month deciding on whether you should date this person or not. So really spend some time on that. But I guess, it does based off of how critical that decision is.
Yeah, so
right?
if you value time, if you're someone who values time, make sure that you have a plan for the day. Make sure you're making informed decisions to make sure that you have enough time to do the things you want to do, and so that you have finished all the things that you have to do and have more time to do the things that you want to do. That's how valuable time is.
Okay. I think, have we covered everything? Yeah, I think we have. We've covered how people in different parts of the world see time differently. We covered scientific perspective of time. We looked at some of the ethics, and we looked at the religious point of views of time. So all I think we need to do is end this episode. How do you want to end this episode? Do you want to do the clink?
Yeah,
so the clink is basically when we take both our cups that we've been drinking this pomegranate tea from and we clink them. So really close to that. And 3, 2, 1. We're done. All right, first episode. Woo! This podcast was produced by Priya and Rengarajan, directed and edited by Arjun Balaji, and the music was done by Prithvi Prakat. We encourage you to have discussions at home and talk about things with friends and family. And as always, we hope to see you next time.